Hello and welcome to Script and Pencils, the interview podcast from the Comic Crush. I'm your host, Paul, as always. Today, I'm very lucky to be joined by the man who I've interviewed more times than anyone else ever. It's Joel Meadows from Tripwire.
Hello.
Hello, Joel. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you
Good. I'm
doing?
glad you're here. I'm good. I'm good. You're looking well. You're looking well. It's good to see you. We haven't seen each other in ages. Actually, it's been a few months, hasn't it? Haven't actually
Apart from the
caught up.
awards, which was a
Oh,
brief
that's right. Yes,
visit in
of course.
August, but yes.
Yeah. Oh, and I think you did come into Gosh a few weeks back, but we haven't really kind of hung out in ages. So it's good to have
No.
this chance to sort of catch up with what you're doing and what Tripwire is doing, more importantly, because you've got a lot of exciting things happening, which we're going to reveal in the course of the next sort of half hour or so. I want to start with the latest Tripwire magazine because that looks really great. There are some great articles in there. I mean, you've managed to pack it this time with so much. In fact, is it even bigger than the last one, the one that was out like earlier this year?
Well, it's physically bigger, but in terms of its page count, it's exactly the same as the last one. It just feels like there's more to it.
That must be it. It's the girth.
Yeah, exactly. The width rather than the length.
But there is terrific stuff in there. I was particularly drawn to the Drew Sturgeon article. Very fine film poster artist that I'm sure many of your readers and many of my listeners and viewers know. But also, you know, there was a lot more film stuff this time. Is that right?
Yes.
Like, it feels like you had the 40th anniversary of Indiana Jones and the 40th anniversary of An American Werewolf in London. Do you I know you primarily started out as a comics journalist. Am I right?
Yes, I kind of, yes.
But do you still get a kick out of stepping outside that and doing film stuff?
Well, I've always enjoyed film. I mean, the American Werewolf in London piece that runs in the mag is actually written by Stephen Dalton, who's written for NME and The Guardian. Obviously, as you say, the Drew Struzan and the Indiana Jones piece was written by myself, and the 2009 feature interview with him was also done by me. I'm a huge film nut, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
You know, I've always loved film. You know, when I was a kid, I remember going to see some really dodgy Doug McClure films at the old Flea Pit Cinema in Hendon, one called Warlords of Atlantis, which hasn't aged particularly well. But I've always loved cinema and I've always loved film, and it. You know, we used to have music in the magazine, and then we kind of parted company with a guy that used to do our music reviews. But film and TV is a much better fit, I feel. For us. It complements comics, and much better than music, if I'm honest.
I actually completely agree with that. I think there is that visual complement, as you say. I certainly enjoy covering film stuff, and I'll be doing more in the new year. But yeah, it is always interesting to see. And of course, those worlds often are now fused thanks to the MCU and things like that.
Yes.
But I mean, you do still get the comics content out there. And I was pleased to see a lot of that stuff in the mag. In particular, one thing that really kind of caught my eye was the article on Kickstarter and how Kickstarter is helping fund new comics and get kind of new comics talent out there. What kind of made you want to approach them about talking to you?
Well, I guess that the idea of Kickstarter's plays a major role in comics publishing now, and a much bigger role than it used to. And the model's changed, the comics market has changed, and you're seeing lots of big players, people like Scott Snyder, Liam Sharp, Jimmy Palmiotti, who are all using Kickstarter because they can't get their work, or the mainstream companies, they've changed their tack, and what they want to publish is different to what they would have published a few years ago, and it gives publishers, it gives creators the opportunity, to have complete control over the work that they want to put out. And it's if you look at the last couple of years, especially during the pandemic, and now we're kind of semi-post pandemic. Kickstarter is a major player, and I wanted to reflect that. Like the first print issue we did in January, we looked at the pandemic and how it's changed retail, and I wanted to have a piece in here about how comics Kickstarter has become a major part of the comics publishing model now.
And of course, looking at your power list, you know, Keanu Reeves is top of that.
Yes.
And he along with Matt Kint and Ross Ritchie at Boom, launched a staggeringly successful, I mean, probably the most successful comics Kickstarter in history, I imagine. I doubt anything.
I think it is. We have the top 10 in our feature, but I think Berserker might well be at the top because, as you say, it didn't make a hell of a lot of money. I mean, you know, Reeves is a huge figure. Everybody loves his films thanks to John Wick and Matrix, and he apparently comes across. I've never interviewed him, but apparently comes across as, you know, a very nice guy. But you know, Boom have used. They've embraced the Kickstarter model. You know, they've made it work extremely well for them.
Do you? I mean, I remember there being a lot of controversy at the time of that particular Kickstarter around, you know, oh, Hollywood guy comes in and it's taken away attention from more deserving comics creators and comics pros. Do you have a feeling one way or the other on that?
I'm not sure. I mean, all attention, if you look at it in some ways, all attention is good and it's positive. And if it brings attention to the comics industry, even if it is, you know, a particular big project, it's possible if people see Berserker, they might go, okay, let's look at something else that Boom does, which isn't, you know, written by a, you know, big Hollywood figure, and they might check out some other comics. So you'd like to think kind of like a rising tide, you know, raises all ships.
Yeah, sure.
So I'd like to think that it has had a positive effect. You know, I mean, Boom have had a very, very good sort of last 18 months. I mean, you've had Once in Future, you've got Berserker, you've got Something is Killing the Children. I mean, they've had an amazing, you know, year and a half. And I like to think that hopefully it will translate into sale of other comics. Hopefully might get people to pick up other comics. So I'm really not sure, but I'd like to think that it does have a positive effect on comics in general.
Absolutely. I'm inclined to agree, to be honest. In terms of the articles in the magazine, do you have a favorite of your own? Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be written by you, but if it is, that's okay. Is there something you really enjoy putting together more than any other piece, or is it all kind of just, you know, the entirety of the project that you enjoy?
Well, I mean, I've had to pick one thing. It actually wouldn't be something that I wrote. It would be the American Werewolf piece, because I played with the, you know, there's a kind of, you've got like a red underlay and you've got the werewolf scratches, you know, behind it. And it was kind of, I did it as a bit of fun because, you know, I try and make each feature look different. You know, I've been sort of teaching InDesign recently, and, you know, I talked to them about this idea of a concept of a feature having an idea, and you kind of carry that idea through. And I wasn't sure because it was white text on red. I was a bit worried it'd be hard to read, but I think it's come out really nicely, and I think it's a really strong piece, and I'm very pleased with it. I mean, hopefully the whole package is strong, and I hope it's stronger than and last one was fine. We hadn't done a print mag in 10 years, but I'm hoping I'm beginning to get a little bit of a better feel for designing for print again after such a long gap.
Given the sort of, I mean, there never seems to be any less magazines. When I go into a news agents like Smith's or whatever, there never seems to be any less magazines. However, we are constantly told it is a dying industry and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I actually like a good magazine. I'm old-fashioned that way, I guess. But equally, I don't mind reading digitally.
Yes.
Given a preference, though, I would pick a paper thing every time. However, do you feel that Kickstarter is the way forward if people want to put out specialty publications like yours?
I think it's a great way to do it because you can gauge the audience. You can say, okay, these are our kind of core people who followed us. You know, obviously we've had the website for 6 years. We had the print mag prior to that, and it's a good way to gauge. I mean, the Kickstarter is, you know, it's live, you know, as people are watching this, but we've done like a pre-launch thing to get a sense of how many people are interested. But I think it's a really good model because it does give you an idea. I mean, admittedly, we use a mixed model because we sell through the direct market. We sell our Fantastic Four cover is available in the direct market, but the Hellboy cover is available through crowdfunding.
Both great covers, by the way.
Thank you. So basically, it's you know, it's trying to open up our market. And you know, with things like the crowdfunding to offer people things that they can't get anywhere else. Like we've got some really cool, these, you know, pastiche posters and some really nice stuff, which people can't get, you know, unless they, you know, support the Kickstarter. But if people just want the magazine, you know, they can go into, you know, into their local comic shop, or they can order it from Diamond. They can just get if they just want the mag. So
yeah,
you know.
I mean, I've seen it obviously at Gosh, where I work part time, and It looks great there on the shelf. It's nice to see a comics magazine on the shelf. And speaking of your own Kickstarters,
yes,
we can now talk about the current Kickstarter that you have running. Now, what's this one for?
Well, it is for the print magazine. I mean, we have done. We did a kind of a previous campaign before, but we're offering slightly different perks. Andy Bennett, who's my artist on the Sherlock Holmes thing, as one of the top levels, is offering 3 sketches. He does these amazing Muppet sketches. He calls them Muppets Noir. So they're basically like dark versions of your favorite Muppet characters. And for the ridiculously knockdown price of £300, you can basically get Andy to draw your favorite Muppet, with a kind of like a sort of dark twist. So I think that's amazing. And we've got these really cool pastiche posters. What we've done is we've looked at classic moments in comics history and said, what if Tripwire, covered the first issue of Hellboy, or, what if Tripwire was there when Fantastic Four 1 came out, or when Thor 337, when Walt Simonson started his amazing Thor run. So we've got our friend John Bishop to come up with these amazing posters where he's taken the classic logo. So for Thor, for example, that wonderful broken logo, and he's created a Tripwire logo. So they're kind of fun. They're pastiche posters, where we were not selling them. They're just part of the Kickstarter, and they're just a perk. They're a bit of fun, really.
I'm sure you remember buying a lot of those comics the first time round, right? I mean,
well, some of them, yeah. I mean, Thor, I used to borrow from my brother because I was a DC reader, but I would read Marvel stuff from my brother. I did get the first Hellboy. I'm pretty sure I did. Bit too young for Fantastic Four 1, obviously, but and Walking Dead, I missed out, which I curse myself to this day, because I probably could have made quite a bit of money, and I didn't even buy it because it just kind of passed me by. Like an interesting book, but I missed that. So
I'm not sure I was even buying comics when Walking Dead #1 came out. I think I probably had one of my periods. I've had a lot of periods out of comics.
Yes.
Do you ever do that? You kind of drop out every now and then, or
we've done the magazine for nearly 30 years, so it's kind of difficult to.
No choice.
Not much choice. I have to kind of keep on track of what's happening. In terms of comics, it has been interesting to watch how the industry's changed. Since we started the mag in '92, we launched our first issue where one of our news items was the launch of a company called Image with these 5 upstart artists from Marvel. And it's been interesting to see how that company has changed, how the industry's changed.
Absolutely.
In literally 30 years next year. So yeah, it's fascinating to see that.
And also fascinating to see that Image is now kind of going back to superheroes. More and more.
Of course, because there's all these Spawn books, and as you say, there are some superhero books. So it's it's interesting, but that company it's a really interesting model. I mean, Eric Stevenson, who's on our power list, he's done some amazing things, and without him, I think he's been like the guiding force of that company, because we talked about Walking Dead just now. No Walking Dead, who knows what would have happened to Image. They had a huge hit on their hands, and then you've also had these other books since. They're very, very canny. They can spot a hit, and they can also give people, they give the creators their head to do what they want. And you had something like Saga, which obviously is back very, very soon. So, Image is a really interesting case as a comic company.
Absolutely. I think it's one where you can really chart, as you say, the changing mood and temperature of the industry.
Yes.
Do you still, like, looking at the comics industry, given how long you've been kind of reporting on it?
Yes.
Because I've only been doing comics. I don't want to call it journalism because I'm not a trained journalist. But comics punditry, if you like, for a few years.
Or commentary, perhaps.
Yeah, that might be a better word. There you go. I'm a bit more common than you, Giles.
well, perhaps.
Do you still enjoy it as an industry, or does having to report on it? And I'm not asking for any kind of judgment on the industry or anything like that, but does having to get in there and report on it so much kind of make you go, I don't want to get into this right now, or is there still as much excitement for you?
I mean, I admit I am quite jaded sometimes because I've seen some of this stuff before, but then there are still things I'm still excited about. I mean, I read a batch of new stuff I'm a little bit behind, but I got The Human Target, the first issue by Tom King and Greg Smallwood. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really strong first issue. And I read Cliff Chang's Catwoman, the Black Label book. And again, I thought that was a really good, these are mainstream DC books, and they're really good. And there are still some incredibly talented people working in comics now. So I have to try and remind myself, and I've done 4 shows, since, post-pandemic, and I really enjoyed it. I thought Thought Bubble, particularly was excellent. It was nice. I got to catch up with people, see people like Martin Simmons and Mike Perkins and people like that. And it kind of reminded me that there's still a lot of, really great people in comics, doing a lot of great work. And it's still nice. And I'm also, this week, I've been starting to look into the idea of doing the Sherlock Holmes strip, of actually publishing that ourselves. I've been talking to people about some varying covers, and I've got some pretty amazing artists, and one artist which, if it comes off, it will be unbelievable. Actually, the fact that this person will be doing, a cover for something that I've written, which would be incredible.
Yeah, is that the first time you've written comics?
Well, last January was the first. It's the first published strip. The Sherlock Holmes and Empire Builders. It was a strip from 20 years ago, which I sat on. And then my friend Scott Braden, who does this thing called Lost Tales for us, he's got the Alan Weiss Batman thing in there.
Great articles, yeah.
Thank you. He said, have you got, anything that you worked on which didn't quite work out? And there was a war comic thing which ended really badly. So I said, I don't really want to talk about that. But I said, let's talk about Holmes. And we kind of revisited it. And I thought, you know what? There's still something here. And so I've gone back to it and, kind of rejigged it, and Andy Bennett's redrawn, and I've got to write a script. So that's still really exciting. And that is comics, no question.
It's great. I mean, it's great to see, and I wish you every success with that. So the Kickstarter is running right now as we speak.
Yes, it is.
And how long does that run for?
It runs for 30 days. So it ends on New Year's Eve on the 31st of December. I mean, we weren't sure about running it over the December period because of the run up to Christmas. We thought we'd give it a go and see what happens. We did fairly well last time, so we live in hope. We hope that it would engage with people again.
I really hope people will put their hands in their pockets and support it, because, as I said, it is great to see print magazines commenting on comics and to see kind of the breadth of things that Tripwire does. And it's certainly always good to see that stuff. And certainly I think you get a lot of bang for your buck with the Tripwire specials, because they're nice and thick. And you get a lot of articles in there. I mean, I'm still reading through the last one because there's so much good stuff in it. So,
yes.
Well, it takes time, Joe. As you know, we as comics commentators, we do have a lot of stuff to read every week.
Yes, that's very, very true.
But I'm really excited for you, and I really hope it makes its target. And best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Now I'm coughing. Now, there are other exciting things happening in the world of Tripwire.
There are indeed.
Recently announced, Tripwire presents Bristol Comic Con in 2022.
That's right.
How are you feeling about going back to shows?
Well, it's exciting. I mean, we worked on the 2 Portsmouth shows, which went really well. We learned a hell of a lot. We'd never put a show together before, even though we'd attended so many. And it was a great experience. We got the first year, we got Walton Louise Simonson, we got Gene Haar, we got Cully Hamner. Year 2, we got Roy Thomas, we got Steve Englehart. So we kind of enjoyed it. So we thought, because next year is the 30th anniversary of the magazine, it was going to be this year, but we thought we'd leave it till next year because this year's still a little bit problematic with shows. And I take my hat off to anybody who puts one on. And there have been some great shows this year. So we thought we'd have a go, and we're hoping it's going to be a regular fixture. I mean, that's the plan. We have the Old Hotel for people above a certain age. I used to go to the comic show in Bristol. It used to be it's now the Doubletree at Hilton. It used to be the Ramada. They have done it up. It looks a lot nicer and a lot cleaner and a lot more modern than it used to do. And it's still a nice venue. It's right in the centre of Bristol. It's only a few minutes walk from Temple Mead train station. And we're hoping, that the first year goes well. And if it goes well enough, we'll hopefully try and move it into a slightly larger venue. That's the hope.
Now, before we get on to the sort of really positive sides of this, which are numerous, I do want to ask: has it been difficult attracting guests, given everything that's happened, even for 2022? How cautious are guests being?
Well, we've got some amazing guests because we've got
Mm.
a guy called David Macho on board, who's an artist agent who works with a lot of great creators. And he also puts guests together for European comic shows. And I have to say, he's been amazing. He knows everybody. His black book is even more impressive than mine, to be honest. So he's been brilliant. And so, to be honest, we haven't had anybody. Well, we haven't really had any no's. Actually, we had a couple of people that said they need to get back to us in a few months, but we haven't really had anybody say, we're not keen. I don't really want to come. So far,
that's good. That's excellent. Because it kind of always worries me that, you hear with a lot of cons, guests putting it out at the last minute at the moment, just because of the ongoing kind of worldwide situation. Which, by the time we get into your show, which is September, I believe, 2022.
Yes.
Do you have a specific date?
It's the 3rd, the 4th of September, so it's the first weekend in September next year.
Fantastic. Now, I mean, I'm hoping by the time we get into that, this will be largely put to bed in terms of this ongoing situation that we'll find ourselves in, and fingers crossed for that.
Exactly.
So, like, who are you most excited about to see at the show? I'm not asking you to pick favourites, but who are you really kind of excited to have over? I'm sure you're excited by everyone, but.
Well, yes, it's nice to have Howard Chaykin back because he has been over here, but not for a few years. And obviously, he's an incredible creator, and he's got a huge body of work. And there's a Times Squared collection coming out next year, which includes a new story, I believe. So that's really exciting. It's great to have him. Jorge Fornes, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing his name, so apologies, Jorge, if you're listening to this. Obviously, he worked on Rorschach for DC, and he's worked on Batman, and he's an amazing artist. He's got this kind of David Mazzucchelli line, but with a slight twist. And he seems like a very nice guy. He won our Best New Talent Award, I believe, at the Tripwire Awards, not last year, but the year before, I think, or maybe it was last year. And that's great to have him there. We got Brian Stelfreeze, he's another incredibly talented artist. His work with Black Panther was amazing. And, he's got, again, an amazing CV. So we've got him. We've got Elena Casagrande, Spanish artist who does Blade Runner. And she won an Eisner for her work on Black Widow, Marvel.
I mean, incredible work. Yeah.
Yes. So we've got them. We've got some great British talent. We've got Jock, who obviously is a phenomenal poster artist and a great cover artist. We've got Sean Phillips, who's actually he's going to be creating an exclusive poster for us that we'll be offering on Kickstarter in January or February. There's going to be a pastiche of a classic 70s movie poster, which we're currently finalizing, which is going to be a lot of fun. So
you're not allowed to tell us which poster,
because we haven't decided yet. So
right.
That's kind of that's the main reason. But it will be very.
You're not just being coy.
He's a phenomenal artist, so I'm really looking forward to that. And then we also got Martin Simmons. Obviously, Department of Truth is a huge book. We got Mike Collins, who's done, he's a great comic artist. He's worked on things like Dark Materials and obviously Doctor Who, and he's worked on a load of TV stuff. We just got we got a really nice lineup. We've got a good mix of people. We haven't announced everybody yet. There are some other people. We've got Lisa Hawkins, who's senior editor at Valiant, who's coming. We've got a really good. We're trying to make it a good mix. We're trying to give people, like a cross section. We've got Lawrence Campbell. We got Cavan Scott. We've got Rob Williams, in terms of British talent as well. And so we got some other creators we haven't quite announced yet, but we will be. So it's going to be hopefully it'll be a cool weekend.
It certainly sounds great. I mean, I'm hoping to make it down.
Well, I hope we're more than welcome. We hope you can make it down, obviously.
Thank you. Again, just love the opportunity to meet all that great talent, and also to be able to kind of see what you guys are going to do with the show and the space, because I really enjoyed Portsmouth. I know I say it every time you're on, Joel, but I genuinely did. It was a good show. And I think Tripwire and everyone involved there did a really good job.
Well, thank you.
What's it been like working with the guys at Bristol for this?
Well, they've been fine. I mean, I'm doing it with my friend Andy, who obviously works with me heavily on Tripwire. We've got Katie Cunningham, who works with Time Bomb, who's been great so far. She's involved with the kind of the PR and a couple other people behind the scenes. We're going to have Leonard Sultana, who obviously Leonard. He's going to be doing panels for us, and there's a couple other panel people as well. Because the way I figure it is, we're probably going to be too busy to do that many panels ourselves. So we need some top kind of panel hosts. And Leonard is amazing. Leonard is one of the best people. For comic panels, I've seen him put on quite a few, and he makes it look very, very easy, and he's brilliant. I just think he's fantastic. He's got such innate enthusiasm and such passion, such love for comics, and he just comes across as such a genuinely nice, warm bloke as well, which really helps.
Yeah, I really love Leonard. It was great to actually get a chance to see him again at the Tripwire Awards
At the
earlier
awards,
this
yes.
year. And he did a fine job of presenting along with yourself.
Yes, thank you.
So, I mean, all in all, I mean, this seems like 2022 will be one of the most exciting years for Tripwire in a while.
Yes.
Are you nervous?
Well, a little bit, but you know, we've done some of this stuff. I mean, the other thing we haven't mentioned is the 30th anniversary book, because it's 30 years of the magazine. So we're going to be doing probably like a 200-page anniversary book, which is going to be a mix of reprints and new material, and also art from, you know, many of the artists who are going to be at the show, as well as, you know, some other artists who, you know, won't be there, unfortunately. But we feel it's a big milestone. We did a 21st anniversary book in 2013. We did a 10th anniversary book in 2002. So we thought we need to mark this. So this will be launching at Bristol, and we hope to do some events, you know, around the country, you know, places like bookshops and Gosh and, you know, Cartoon Museum and Waterstones. We want to, you know, this is a milestone which we want to commemorate.
And it's actually not that many comics publications that get to go for that period of time.
No, that's true.
And especially not ones that are still producing magazines. You know, when you think about the ones that have gone by, Wizard and things like that, and
yes,
it's always kind of sad to see them not still going. But I certainly wish you all the best with it, Joel.
Thank you.
Congratulations in advance on 30 years. I'm sure I'll be wishing you a happy birthday when it comes along. But you know, thank you for coming to talk to us today.
It's always a
really
pleasure.
So
am I really the person you've interviewed more than anyone else?
You are. I've told you this before. You are, in fact, the person I've interviewed. I think we've spoken like 4 or 5 times. You would be pipped to the post by Ram V. However,
yes,
because we had a fantastic interview, and I still to this day weep about it. That went very wrong technically. It was a great interview, but I just didn't have the recording of it.
Well, these things happen.
He would pip you to the post.
Yes,
but there you go. If you, I'll send you a special award, Joel.
Well, thank you. Yes, a no prize. Maybe I can get a no prize from the Comic Crush.
It'll definitely be on the budget I'm on. It will definitely be a no prize. But you know, it certainly sounds like thrilling stuff. I'm looking forward to coming to Bristol. I'm looking forward to read the new magazine, and indeed to have a look at the 30th anniversary special. I'm sure I know someone who can sneak me a couple of early pages of that.
Probably, yeah, I think so, yes.
But I wish you every success. You're doing really well, and
thank you.
Great
Paul.
to see.
Always a pleasure.
It is always a pleasure to have you on, and hopefully we can catch up for a coffee next week or the week after before Christmas. It would be lovely to.
It would be nice to see you. So,
sorry, folks, we're just arranging our own personal schedules on the show. You don't mind, do you? But Joel, lovely to see you. Thanks so much again for joining us.
And thanks for having me on as ever.
My pleasure. Anything else you want to add before we disappear into the ether?
Well, no. Obviously, people can support the Kickstarter until the 31st of December.
There'll be a link in there.
The URL, but the link will be. Paul, you'll kindly share it.
I will kindly share the link. And
the show URL is Tripwire Comic Cons with 2Cs.com. If people can buy tickets now.
It will all be in there. I promise you. You don't have to laboriously type this in.
Kickstarter is too complicated for me to actually remember, but the other one is one I can actually say. So people can buy tickets now. They can buy early bird tickets. If they buy the early bird tickets, well, they're saving a bit of money on the price. They can also get an exclusive Martin Simmons print. We've got 200 tickets. We've already started to sell some. So there's that. There's also the VIP tickets. So people can get early access to the show on the Friday afternoon, and they can go around our exhibitions. They can get to see the show before anyone else.
We should say just 200 of the early bird. It's not just 200.
Yeah, no. It's just the early bird, so people will be able to get regular tickets. But we're making early bird tickets available, so if people want to they can grab themselves an exclusive Martin Simmons print, which is pretty nice. So they are selling at the moment. So yeah, we're looking forward to seeing people again, and we're looking forward to doing our own show. Portsmouth was great, and we've thanked them. They've been brilliant. They were very generous with their time, but we feel like we want to do our own thing now. We wish Portsmouth well, of course, and there is a Portsmouth show in May, and our friend David Bailey is involved with that, and we wish them all the best, and we hope to come down, to check out and see what Dave's putting on, for the new show in May as well. So
certainly,
it's been, but as I said, they've been very generous with their time.
I'll give you a shout, Joel. We'll make it a bit of a jolly. We'll head down.
Yeah, why don't we do that
together?
That sounds like a plan. It'd be great. We could go in the car. It'd be like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, perhaps.
Yeah, the sedate middle class version.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
So we've almost got it dead on half an hour, Joe. There you go.
Okay.
I just want to thank everyone who's tuned in today and everyone who's listening in on the podcast. Remember, there are more great videos on this channel. You can like, share, and subscribe, all of which helps us out. Please do check out the web store and the Patreon, which helps keep the Comic Crush going. And we'll hopefully see you next time on the Crush. Joel, goodbye.
Paul, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on here.
Thanks, Joel. And